Indigenous voice a greater need than a republic, says business. And the boss of Australia's first $100 billion business, Brian McNamee. And this is the most hypocritical statement I've ever read in 30 years of campaigning. It is outrageous. Please let me explain why. This was the article published today by the Financial Review. And it starts off with CSL chairman Brian McNamee about how he's backed Prime Minister Anthony Albanese's decision to pursue Indigenous recognition before a republic, saying many Australians felt indifference towards the monarchy. Dr. McNamee said, although it was time to shift from a monarchy to a republic, enshrining an Indigenous voice in the Constitution was a greater need. Constitutional recognition of First Nations people and a well-constructed voice is a greater need due to the indifference of most of us to the monarchy, and as yet our inability to formulate a republic model that people embrace, Dr. McNamee said. Having said that, it would be ideal if we could incorporate both matters that we could vote on and perhaps find a way to do both together in an integrated manner. The blood products boss said Britain's history of colonisation in Australia still needed to be addressed by the royal family, and that it was likely that King Charles III would need to apologise for the empire's colonial past. I'm confident Brand Windsor and their sophisticated promotional department will do all it can here to rehabilitate King Charles. Now, what an outrage. I'm no royalist, okay? But this man's talking about rehabilitating Prince Charles, okay? Well, he's talking about how we have to have an Indigenous voice, okay? All very well. If that's what Australia wants, great. We're all for it, aren't we? But the man talks about how the UK has to make up for its colonial past and we have to have apologies. Well, guess what? This man has a big connection to the UK, and in fact, he has a big connection to the infected blood scandal. This is the worst medical scandal in the history of the Commonwealth, and this man has profited making hundreds of millions of dollars from the sale of blood, while his company CSL have been covering up the worst treatment scandal and the murder of young children. I am now going to show you a segment from my statement. I was made a witness to the largest legal investigation in British history, and I'll read it to you. It is from this man, Brian McNamee's company, okay, during the HIV crisis of the mid-1980s. It starts, I'm aware of a report of a meeting of the BTS, as the blood transfusion services, executive subcommittee held in Canberra on the 23rd and 24th of February 1984, which stated, Dr. Schiff reported that the heat sterilisation currently being evaluated at Commonwealth Serum Laboratories, CSL, resulted in a fall of yield of factor rate of about 40%. Now, factor rate was a blood treatment given to haemophiliacs, okay? As overseas manufacturers claimed losses of only 15%, Commonwealth Serum Laboratories was investigating other methods in an effort to find a more satisfactory process. What they're talking about is heat treating to get rid of viruses like HIV, because you see, this document here, these discussions are taking in 1984. They knew from 1981 that HIV, then under a different name, had contaminated blood supplies around the world and that people were being infected. And here they are in 84 saying, as manufacturers overseas claimed losses of only 15%, this is to the yield of the product once they heat treat. The product's free of HIV, but you lose some of the product because you're heat treating it, right? Some of that blood plasma evaporates. And they're saying, as overseas manufacturers claimed losses of only 15%, Commonwealth Serum Laboratories was investigating other methods in an effort to find a more satisfactory process. He said that at present, pressure from interested groups for a heat-treated factor rate concentrate was not at a level where an immediate solution was required. Really? HIV had been in the blood supply since 81 around the world, and hepatitis C, then known as non-A, non-B, had been infecting haemophiliacs for decades. And he says it was not at a level required where haemophiliacs would... Look at this. Was not at a level where an immediate solution was required, although haemophiliacs would like to have a product available in Australia as soon as possible. Of course they would. They didn't want to be killed. And parents didn't want to have their children killed. the committee urged that no decision be hurriedly taken on a matter which would have such far-reaching consequences for the blood transfusion services, such as markedly decreasing the amount of factor VIII available for treatment, while at the same time increasing the cost of both plasma collection and processing. Well, many patients wouldn't have died without having the factor VIII treatment available. It was a treatment. But what they did die from was AIDS. Okay, because they've been injected with this product that CSL didn't want to make safe because it might increase costs a little bit. Now let's have a look at this article. This article was published 4 years ago. Beautiful Blood, How CSL Became a Global Success Story. This man here is Dr. Peter Schiff. He's the same man who was talking in this previous article. Okay, here it is. In this previous document that we just had, okay, this is him. I am aware of a meeting. This is him. Dr. Schiff reported that the heat sterilisation currently being evaluated at Commonwealth Serum Authorities result in a fall to 40%. And he's the same guy was saying at present, pressure from interested groups for a heat-treated factor VIII concentrate was not at a level where an immediate solution was required, although haemophiliacs would like to have a product. Yes, because they didn't want to be killed. Okay, that's him in 1984. And here he is smiling like a Cheshire cat, okay, because he has made an absolute fortune. And here we go. This is the Sydney Morning Herald. What a disgrace. It's probably the most shameful article this newspaper's put out. Now, I'm a Sydney Morning Herald reader and a subscriber, but this is one of their worst ever articles. And I predict it'll end up in a bloody Royal Commission. Here it goes. Peter Schiff spent much of his life donating blood to the Australian Red Cross. He started giving blood in 1953 as a medical student. Oh, what a great guy. Thank you so much. So it's fitting that the 83-year-old's investments in the blood business, because he was a blood donor, they're saying, he was one of CSL's early investors when the company listed on the Australian Stock Exchange in 1994, have made him a small fortune. That's fitting according to the Sydney Morning Herald. Okay, so it's fitting because he donated some blood, therefore he deserves to have made fortunes and CSL deserves to have made billions. Now let's go back to what he was doing in 1984. Oh, here we are. That's right. He wasn't heat treating the products because he didn't want to spend more money. Okay, and so he's murdering kids. But now here we are, smiling like a Cheshire cat. And now here we are, back to CSL's current boss, Brian McNamee, who's a graduate of the World Economic Forum the same year that CSL was privatised, and the guy that headhunted him to run the then publicly owned Commonwealth Serum Laboratories, John Button, the Labor Minister for Industry and Commerce in the 80s and 90s, was also a World Economic Forum graduate. And then he made Brian one too, and they sold off CSL, and they covered up Australia's worst treatment scandal and the manslaughter of patients, okay, and the murder of children. And now this man, this great moral leader of Australia, this great business figure who's made fortunes selling Australian blood and his company has covered up our worst treatment scandal, tells us it's time that Prince Charles apologise. King Charles will have a big PR job, okay, apologising for his empire's colonial past. What about your past, Brian McNamee? What about the past of Australia's biggest business and the world's biggest blood products company? Will we have some candour? Will we have some candour in this new republic that you envision? This new constitution? Will we have candour? Will we have accountability? Thank you to everyone that listened. This is the worst article I've seen in my life by a terrible man. How dare you, McNamee? Your hypocrisy is sickening.